Hey, you're watching yet another sponsored video by Intel. This time we actually have someone from Intel on, Chris Murphy. We'll call him Murph, Global Account Manager for Intel, and Rick Reddy, who you've seen on Tech Field Day videos. So if he looks familiar to you, that's where you know him from. Product Manager from Dell Technologies. Rick and Murph, welcome to the program.
Great to be here.
So we're talking more VxRail. More importantly, the two teams are going to talk about their years-long collaboration. I'll hand it over to who's going to drive, Rick or Murph?
I think I'll start off, Keith. Thank you very much. My name is Rick Reddy, and I run product management for VxRail at Dell Technologies. Thank you for inviting us to speak to you and your viewers about the innovation that we do jointly with Intel on our product line. I'd like to lead in, for those of you who don't know about VxRail, with what we are. We're a jointly engineered solution for VMware environments with VMware. And when we started our journey with VxRail, we were at a company, EMC, that was acquired by Dell 4 years ago. But prior to the acquisition, we partnered extensively with Intel to develop our first VxRail platforms. And it was an Intel designed platform and an Intel built platform. And since that time, we've grown to almost 10,000 customers, over $2 billion in annual revenue, with over 100,000 nodes of VxRail out there. It's been a truly amazing journey, and Intel's been a strategic partner throughout this entire process.
So, Rick, hold on. You know, you've presented to me at Tech Field Day before, so you know what, when you come with slides, you know what's gonna come, which is I think the bottom line question my viewers want to know. Intel, Dell, even going back to the EMC days, no matter how much of the VMware Aurora you put around it, Dell is still a hardware company. Intel is a hardware company. And on this screen, you guys have cloud, Kubernetes, etc. Let's cut to this chase. Software is eating the world. Where's the software value of this Intel and Dell relationship?
Keith, that's an excellent question. As you know, and your viewers know, software cannot run by itself. It has to run on hardware. And the job of VxRail is to provide an automated, validated, cloud-like experience to our customers where they don't have to spend time worrying about all the underlying BIOS and firmware and driver updates on the hardware, nor do they have to worry about the VMware software-defined stack updates. We take all of those updates, bring them together, and validate them as a single update package that our customers can seamlessly use to get them from one version of VMware software to another.
All right. So again, we're not scared to ask taboo questions on the CTO Advisor, even with Intel sponsoring this. You know, it doesn't matter from an Intel perspective, in my mind, whether or not I'm consuming Intel Optane and driving my HANA installation and on, Intel Scalable running on Dell Reddy nodes or on VxRail nodes. I mean, from a end of the day perspective, x86 is x86. Am I wrong? What am I missing?
We have over 400 engineers in the VxRail business unit that work on utilizing specific configurations, specific products, whether they be NVMe drives, Optane drives, Optane persistent memory, all the different Xeon processors to solve different use cases. And we run it through extensive, not only validation testing, but performance testing to make sure that when a customer wants to buy a solution to run one of these workloads, we optimize what they get specifically for that workload, right? So if they want to do HANA, we run extensive tests on that, and we will take care of updating all of the underlying environment that HANA runs on top of.
Okay, Rick, you're talking my language from a SAP HANA perspective. It is painful for me to take In my data center today, I'm the CTO Advisor hybrid infrastructure. My Dell 730 XDs, which are near end of life, I need to shut down my vSAN, my VMware's vSAN and vSphere environment. I need to research which firmware is compatible with what storage controller, with what part of the HCI stack for vSAN, et cetera. So you're telling me the value of VxRail, you guys are doing that in automating that process?
That is correct. So all the different components inside the hardware platform, we're not only validating with what should be run with a VMware on their hardware compatibility list, but the hardware compatibility list has a lot of things on there. Because we're part of Dell, we are picking specific versions of drivers. We know what firmware we should have on the drives, on the controllers, right? And then also how they interact with VMware. And then we package that, and then we run it through 25,000 hours of additional testing to make sure that it's complete. And then when it's complete and validated, we provide you a very easy one-click way to non-disruptively update your entire cluster.
We just updated the firmware and vSphere packs on our pod a few weeks ago. Don't tell my engineer that. It's not going to be happy.
And Keith, I'll add a couple of things here because I think what's interesting, if you look at what Rick and the team are doing, they are like fine chefs. I mean, anyone can have the ingredients, right? Anyone. But putting them together and making sure they taste right, that takes expertise. And that's why, history matters, frankly. If you look at what Rick and I started doing, what was that, 5 years ago? We started the first VxRail, right? I think in the back room somewhere, we had 2 conference rooms and whiteboards and went at it. But what's interesting to see it come full circle like this, the amount of hardware engineering that goes on, yes, is extensive. It's built on a bedrock of PowerEdge servers, right? But you've got to take that and add to it. You have to add layer upon layer because the devil is in the details. It's always a piece of firmware or this firmware and that firmware not working right together. And the experience these guys have over the years of engineering and collaboration really does come to bear when you integrate something like this and then make it seamless and automated for updates. That, I think the lifecycle management piece that you guys had, you have nailed it. Nobody does it better because having that system be able to basically take care of itself, is really a unique thing.
So Murph, it's interesting that you mentioned that because a few months ago when I did the look back at 2019, it was another sponsored video for Intel. We talked about the Intel and AWS relationship and how AWS kind of held that Intel relationship up as an example of you can't do the things at scale that AWS does without this long-term relationship. So there's value in this past performance, not just with Dell, but in other Intel partnerships. So, I can buy that. I'll go ahead and, Rick, let you go ahead with your presentation. You know how I feel about slides, but
I have 2 more, so please bear with me. I just want to touch upon briefly, we were saying, what is the value of VxRail, right? We're bringing together the VMware software-defined data stack. We are doing all the full stack lifecycle management. We have our VxRail manager. We have ecosystem connectors and APIs because, we're not the last place that the information needs to reside. There needs to be an external management, usually where, large companies bring their own. They want to control things with APIs. It could be Ansible. It could be vRealize. It could be homegrown. We provide all the API connectors for that. And of course, you get the world-class single support from Dell, right? Because we're providing all of the hardware and all of the software to the customers. And if the customers choose, they can package it all under the under VMware Cloud Foundation as the umbrella. And we're tightly integrated with Cloud Foundation such that when Cloud Foundation wants to execute a command or perform an update of clusters in the Cloud Foundation landscape, it issues API calls to VxRail to go through and do the automated lifecycle management.
So, Rick, I won't beat you up too much on this slide. We talked about this at Tech Field Day. I'll link the Tech Field Day video in which we really went at Rick, talking about the different layers of automation. A little old, but I think it still is relevant.
I agree, it's still relevant because people still want to deploy kind of an automated infrastructure. Now they're doing more around containers, right? And this is where things like VMware Tanzu come into play, right? You want to set up a real good dev environment using Tanzu. You don't want to be spending all of your time managing the underlying infrastructure. You want it to run on top of VCF, on top of VxRail, out of the box.
You know what? We didn't talk about this, but now that you mentioned it, I think about applications such as SAP HANA. Do you guys have customers who buy VxRail specifically for this experience? Because I know VMware customers have a tendency of, lagging back on updates because it's a mature platform. But I can easily see customers buying a pot of this just to get Tanzu.
In the new modern application world, we're going to have a mix of traditional VMs and containers. Those can live together on top of Cloud Foundation. And in Cloud Foundation, will allow customers not only to connect to the cloud and do the different types, host the different types of applications, but automates the entire infrastructure. And like I said before, it's really around having your on-premises infrastructure behave like the public cloud. Right? You don't worry about the infrastructure at AWS or Azure, right? You run your applications on top of it. Amazon and Microsoft take care of all of the updates for you.
Sounds good.
We think so, and our customers do as well. And customers do, by the way, buy VxRail to run all of these modern applications. It's not just for kind of a VDI applications, which is where hyperconverged started its journey. It was a very logical place, but now it's all sorts of mission critical applications and running from the data center environments out to the very far edge. They have a single platform with a single management experience that can incorporate the vast majority of their use cases. It really helps them simplify their entire IT landscape.
So talk to me about this relationship in some detail around what do I get when I marry VxRail with Intel. Obviously, I'm going to get Intel scalable processors and VxRail, but beyond Intel scalable processors, what am I getting? Especially because I saw on the first slide you had some AI there, you had some ML, and my favorite SAP HANA. When I throw HANA at a thing, I'm thinking about some pretty big systems,
like quad socket systems with 12 terabytes of RAM. Sure. And did you know, by the way, that VxRail was the first hyperconverged platform to be certified for SAP HANA? Right? And we did that with Intel Optane persistent memory, right? Because that's the use case that most of our customers have been asking for.
Come on, Rick. I was one of those customers asking for that. So yes, I do know that.
And we appreciate that. I think it's interesting the journey we've been on with this, Rick, because while I think you came out with persistent memory, maybe July timeframe, I think it was, we've been working on that for 3 years, right? And I think what's interesting as I look at this slide or all the slides is there's always hardware there, but all the hardware on the left is built on software, really. If you think about the instructions in the processor, you think about the integration that has to take place between different components, different software stacks, and more importantly, the workloads that have to run on them. And 90% of what we do is actually software, right? The work we do together with VMware, the work we do together, yes, developing awesome hardware, absolutely, and integrating that stuff and making it easy is absolutely a key part of what we do. But the software work we do is probably the bigger part of our effort. And I think in bringing out Optane persistent memory is a great example of something that had to start quite a while ago to make sure when it was ready, it was mission critical ready and could run on these platforms at scale. So it's been a great journey, and we are very excited to have you folks launch in the HCI space first. It was very, very big deal to us, and we look forward to even the next launch, which I think you're coming out, yes, it's just next month. Am I allowed to talk about your next thing, hello? Or can we?
Please go right ahead.
Okay, so if you look at the Optane persistent memory technology, clearly you can get a lot more memory in your system than you can with traditional DRAM. And that's really a game changer when you look at how we architect these systems. Because if you look at where the bottlenecks are, and you think about this, when we engineer this stuff, Rick, there's always a bottleneck somewhere. So we go over there and fix that problem just to go chase the bottleneck somewhere else. And one of the bottlenecks we've been dealing with really over years as processors have scaled and core counts have scaled is the memory piece. The memory piece just hasn't scaled the same. And that's why Intel's bringing this kind of technology to market to really break those barriers of not just having bigger memory, but having new use cases. To have memory that's persistent, so when you shut the system off and turn it back on again, your data's still in memory. That's a big deal, right? So you think about these large in-memory databases, not to have to read to that when you restart a system or a VM. That's a big deal. So it's been very exciting, and we now bring out this other mode using this technology called memory mode, which you folks will launch, I think it's just next month. And that's going to be really cool. We're going to see some really, really great use cases where you can talk about taking VM consolidation to a whole new level, like 25% better consolidation, and you're not going to pay any more than you did before. So more for the same price is always a good equation to us. So those are the kind of things we deliver working on these technologies, and it's been a fun journey. There's a lot more to come too as we look forward.
Well, Murph, you really set up a different video that we did with Greg Colburn, where he went into some good detail about, we champion SAP HANA running on Intel Optane, but he went into some detail on how even Microsoft has moved the needle with SQL Server 2016 and 2019 and leveraging Intel Optane persistent memory. It is surprising. I did Best of VMworld judging last month. Intel Optane won Best of Show for Innovation. And one of the things that the judges debated on was this thing was persistent memory kind of ready for the market? And I love the work that both you, Dell, and other OEMs have brought to bear, especially at the software layer. So I poked fun at you guys at the beginning talking about, two hardware companies. Where's the software? There's an incredible amount of software to make PMEM work because you're taking, two very different technologies, putting them together and optimizing overall system performance. That doesn't happen unless there's a major investment in software. So I really appreciate both of you guys coming on, sharing the partnership, Intel for sponsoring the video. So Rick and Murph, thanks again for joining. I know I'm not the easiest interview, not even when the video is sponsored. At the end of the day, our customers really want to know what's what with this technology, and whether it's sponsored, editorial, we get after you here at the CTO Advisor. You want to learn more about the CTO Advisor, you can follow us on the web, thectoadvisor.com. If there's pushback, if I wasn't hard enough on Intel and Dell, two hardware companies, hit me up on Twitter at CTO Advisor. We can have that debate. Talk to you next, CTO Dose.